For best results, we suggest hiring a professional paper installer. Well, we're gonna skip that step. Definitely kind of an interesting texture. It's gonna be fine. What could go wrong? Oh my God. This is a nightmare. I'm hoping I put enough adhesive. I have good news and I have bad news. It is time to add some character to this big blue box of a room. We've spent a lot of time building storage and installing that storage for this space. We've painted the first coat, at least, on the cabinets. But now we need to add a little bit of flavor, okay? Mix in the spices, if you will. And we're going to do that in a few ways. The first is going to be installing wallpaper on the ceiling. This pattern is called Evie by North and Finch. It's this beautiful, like sort of cottagey lattice type pattern. It's got some light dusty blues in there, and the background is sort of like a soft creamy white. We're going to do this first before we then add some crown molding. It will just make it easier. I don't have to worry so much about the edges because we'll cover them up with the crown molding. And I'm hoping as a first-time wallpaperer that will make my job a little bit easier. We're already choosing a more difficult surface, the ceiling, instead of walls, which, you know, it's kind of hard to work above your head. I don't know if you've ever painted a ceiling before, but it's like tiring and your arms hurt, and now I'm like hanging wallpaper. So I don't know what I'm thinking doing this for the first wallpaper job, but it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. I know it is. Because I am no expert on this, I am following the instructions that were included with the wallpaper. I feel like that's very important. There are so many different application methods, styles and types of wallpaper, etc. And so because I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm not gonna go off book. We're gonna follow the recipe. Okay? The first step for best results, we suggest hiring a professional paper installer. Well, we're gonna skip that step because I'm considering myself a professional. Moving on, step 1, surface prep. Thoroughly clean the surface, blah, blah, blah. Properly prime the surface with suitable product. So they recommended this Roman Pro 909 Vinyl Prep Clear Wallpaper Primer, or similar. I didn't know what or similar was, so I just ordered exactly what they called for. Ordered this on Amazon. I will include a link to it. It did come a little dented, just in case you do order it and it's a little messed up, but it wasn't leaking or broken or anything, so no problem. I don't have any other recommendations aside from this one. If you know more than I do and there are other similar prep primers like this, definitely let us know in the comments. Help us out a little bit. This just says to apply an even coat with a roller, brush, or a spraying system. I'm just going to use a roller and then like brush the edges of the wall. Dry to touch in approximately 1 hour and ready for wall covering installation in 3 hours. So I'm going to put this on, let it dry, obviously wait the 3 hours at minimum before applying the paper. But the purpose of this, or at least my understanding of this, is that it will make removal in the future easier. I hope I never remove this. I hope it stays up forever, but I like to change my mind and I want to set myself up for success, and I have heard horror stories about removing wallpaper, so I do feel strongly that prep is important. I'm not going to skip it. We're not going to cut any corners. We're going to do it right so that we have a better time installing and a better time removing it in the future if we ever decide to do so. So let's put a coat of this on and then we can move on to the fun part, which is installing the paper. The longest screw ever. Okay, that was pretty easy. 1 coat of primer is applied, cleanup was super easy, everything washed up really nicely with warm water. Now we are just going to give this the full 3 hours to dry so that we can move on to installing the wallpaper. We are gearing up, getting ready to apply this wallpaper. and I am feeling really nervous. I'm feeling so nervous. It's like excited nervous because I've never done this, but I'm so excited to see how it's going to look. I know it's going to be awesome. I've got a fresh roller here for applying the paste. This is the type of paper where you apply the paste directly on the wall and then, you know, layer the paper on top of that. So I've got a roller for that. I've got a clean tray to pour the paste into. I've got my paste here. This was the recommended brand and type from North & Finch. So it's Roman Pro 880 Ultra Clear Strippable Wallpaper Adhesive. This was also recommended by my friend Kayla. If you don't follow her, you should. On YouTube and Instagram, she has installed wallpaper a number of times, and in one of her recent videos, she actually tried a different paste which she didn't like, and she recommended this one too. So hearing multiple people talk about this one leads me to believe it's a good choice. So we're going with it. I also put a fresh blade in my utility knife here so that when we need to cut the paper, it's a nice clean cut. If you have a dull blade, it'll just tear the paper. So I've got a fresh blade in here. I measured the ceiling and then I marked a center point in a couple of different locations. And now what I'm going to do is turn on my laser level and strike a line down all my little pencil marks. And that will be the line that we align the first sheet of wallpaper to. And then when we put the next sheet up, it will just give us a reference point to align the next one to. This paper is pre-cut, and I did unroll it in the dining room where I had a little more space and just make sure the patterns line up. But so I have two sheets, they're just rolled inside one another like this, and they're really not that long, they're 6 feet each. So this is what our pattern is going to look like. I know it's really poor lighting, but I promise I'll give you a better shot in the morning, and hopefully this will be up and we'll be talking about how fun it was to hang. Yay! I will say this ahead of time, I already know this is going to be more difficult with one person, but I'm way too excited, I'm ready to go, and I want to try it. It's probably much easier with a second set of hands because gravity is working against you, but it's a small space, it's not a long sheet of paper, so I'm going to attempt to get it up by myself, and if that doesn't work, then I will pull in reinforcements. But I believe in myself, and yeah, what could go wrong, right? I'm going to go around just on one side first. I'm not going to paste the whole ceiling because I don't want it to dry before I can get the next sheet of paper up. And I'm going to edge all of the areas I can't reach with the roller. Then I will roll, and I'm going to go just over this laser line so I don't have too much exposed adhesive. Here goes nothing. All right, first half is up. That was a little stressful. I had like a mini panic attack when I first started, and I was like, I don't know what to do, I don't have enough hands, But thankfully, paper is a little bit forgiving, and we were able to get that up. I'm hoping I put enough adhesive. It's so hard to tell. I don't know, but I'm gonna, before I put the other panel up, I'm going to lift this inside edge and just make sure I really have a good amount of adhesive by the edge so that the edges don't lift where we'll have that one seam going down the middle. But I feel pretty good about the first panel. The trimming I didn't do perfectly because it's going to be covered with crown molding. I used this filthy putty knife, but if this were meant to be a clean finished edge and it wasn't going to be covered up, this is not the proper tool for the job. I'm just making do with what I have. Yeah, I can already see the edge lifting. You can't see it. It's like right on the edge of the middle there around the light fixtures. So I'm going to just get that glued down really well before we start adding adhesive to the other side and putting the second panel up. My God, I'm sweating a little bit. is a nightmare. I was very excited to wake up and get down here to see how the wallpaper looks. It looks so good, so good. There is just something about getting the wallpaper up that makes me feel like we're finally turning a corner. We've been in like build stage for so long, which is a very important part of the process, obviously, but I like the design part of it. And starting to see some of that character infused into the space is like really lighting me up, and holy smokes, I'm so pumped about this pattern. It is exactly what I wanted it to be and more. Let me show you what it looks like. I love how this is playing with the navy blue, and I'm really glad we went with a lighter pattern on the ceiling because I think it helps maintain a little bit of brightness in the space. Couple of takeaways. One, if you're hanging paper on the ceiling, it's going to be easier with two people. I knew that going into it, but I'm impatient and I just wanted to get the job done. I am who I am, I can't help it, so I accepted the challenges that came with that when I started. Aligning the seams, I did a pretty good job, but there's one area like right in front of the light fixture here that is split just the tiniest bit. It's a tiny little sliver. I'm not that worried about it. Could I have fixed it? Yes, but working above your head is really hard. I'm never gonna stand in this room and stare directly at the ceiling. And it was my first time hanging paper, so I have to give myself a little bit of grace, learn from, some of these challenges, and I'll only get better from here on out when I do hang paper. I think I expected, having primed the walls before, that it would be easier to like slide the paper a little bit with the adhesive, but it wasn't sliding as much as I thought it would. I don't know if I needed more adhesive or that's just the nature of this paper. I really have nothing to compare it to. I'm sure there's some kind of trick, but something to just keep in mind for future wallpaper installation. The last thing I will mention is that this paper is actually just the slightest bit see-through. I don't know if it's the type of paper, the brand, or just the fact that it's sort of like a light background color, but around the edges where some of the navy blue paint kind of splashed onto the ceiling, you can see it peeking through just a little bit. It's like a little shadow. Now, that's not going to be an issue for us because we're hanging crown molding, so it will cover all of that up, but if I were hanging this and I wasn't going to install crown molding, I would have wanted to make sure I was a little more careful around the edges so that that blue paint wasn't going to show through. Now that the wallpaper's up, we can move on to some of our final trim and molding work. So I need to install face frame on the front of these cabinet boxes. I'm just going to use poplar. I'm not going to do any priming, sanding, or painting in advance because we still have a lot of painting work that we need to do in place, and I think it will save us a little bit of time to just save everything for one big batch of painting at the end. The plan is to add 2 doors to this big open cabinet here, and then we will leave these shelves open. The face frame installation will be the same for all of them. We just won't be adding doors to this side. So I'm gonna go cut some poplar, we'll get that nailed in place, and then we can move on to the crown molding. Okay, we are actually going to pivot because the technique I was just using is not working out the way that I was hoping it would. And I was not able to get the opening square where we're going to install cabinet doors. And it's very important that it is square because when we build the doors will be square. And if we don't have a square opening, the doors will not fit into that opening. So I pulled all of those pieces of poplar off. What we can do is drill pocket holes in the ends of the two horizontal pieces and then screw those into the vertical pieces so that we can make sure our face frame is square before we actually install it on the front of the cabinet. I do not love having to undo and redo work, but I do think this will set us up for success when we get into the doors, so it's worth it now to take the extra time to just pause, step back, undo a little bit of work, and do it right. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pull out these nails, we'll drill some pocket holes, and then we'll try to assemble the face frame here on the floor before we actually go install it. I'm happy to report that this method worked so much better. And I should have known that. I just chose to go the lazy way first and learned my lesson. For some reason, I just never thought that this Craig clamp would actually hold the two pieces flush. And when you screw pocket hole screws in, sometimes things can shift and then your, two pieces of wood that are joining aren't flush. And I hadn't quite figured out how to do that properly. And turns out the clamp that I've had the whole time actually does the job it's supposed to do. So everything is flush. I just measured everything. It's all square within a 1/16 of an inch, which is amazing. So we are going to bring this into the laundry room, nail it in place, and then repeat this process for the other side. If I have learned anything as a DIYer, it is that if you convince yourself something is easier, it's probably not. You're spending more time convincing yourself something is easier than just learning how to do it right or trying a different method. And that was exactly the case with the face frame here. So we pivoted. I'm so glad we did. The pocket hole method worked out really, really well. Now I know for future, if I'm going to be building cabinets or anything that needs face frame, that is the method to go with. All in all, it took a little bit longer, but we learned a couple of lessons and it looks great. And now we can check this off of our list and move on to the crown molding. I have a scrap piece here from my office. That was the only other place I've ever installed crown molding. And in that space, I only installed it above the cabinets. I didn't go around the whole top of the room. So this time we're going to be going around the whole room. This is a crown molding profile from Windsor One. It's meant to be traditional for Greek Revival style homes, which is what we have. I do like staying true to the style of the home wherever I can. And I actually really like the simple, subtle curve and this little sort of like rounded detail here. Crown molding is tricky because it doesn't sit flat up against the wall like this. It actually sits at like a 45-degree angle. So it makes cutting it a little more tricky. We have 6 interior corners and 2 exterior corners that we need to cut for. So we've got our work cut out for us. I'm going to start with the piece that goes along the top of the cabinets here. It's one big, long, straight piece, so I feel like it's a good place to start and get comfy, and then we can kind of start working our way around the room. There are a couple of things that make cutting crown molding a little bit tricky. It's not actually hard to do, it's just a few things you have to remember before you actually do your cut. The first is that you cut your crown molding upside down. So this is how it will be installed up on the ceiling, but when I cut it, I actually flip it around upside down. When you cut crown molding, you're not cutting it flat on the bed of the saw like this. You're actually propping it up at an angle, just like you would when you're installing it. So you can see there's a flat surface here and a flat surface here by my thumb. Those are the 2 surfaces that are going to touch the wall and the ceiling when you install it. The last few things that are easy to mess up are the direction of the saw blade, so either a left 45 or a right 45, and the placement of the molding. So it's either on the left side of the blade or the right side of the blade. And the combination of those two different angles is what gets you your inside or outside corner. So before I actually started cutting, I watched a quick YouTube video and just wrote down here what angles I need for each of those different cuts. So right inside, right outside, and left outside, and then the direction of the molding on the left or right of the blade, and the direction of the blade itself, 45 degrees left or 45 degrees right. So that is what will ensure that when you actually cut these angles, they meet the way you want them to when they're up on the ceiling. Okay, I have good news and I have bad news. We'll start with the good news. The good news is that I have not made a single miscut installing all of this crown, which I'm very proud of. My technique to avoid miscuts is to cut everything a little bit longer than my measurement, and then I bring it in here and just go back and forth to the saw to shave off a little bit, just so it can fit in whatever space I'm trying to fill perfectly. The corners are looking really good. There's just small little creases, which is normal, and we can use caulk to fill those, and then I'll wood fill all of the nail holes. So yeah, we're in pretty good shape, and I'm really happy with how it's looking. I mean, come on, that looks so sick. The bad news is that, well, you can probably see the bad news. I'll give you a second to look around. Yeah, the bad news is that we're missing one piece of crown molding because I didn't measure the room before I ordered the crown molding, and we don't have enough. So, unfortunately, I had to special order one more piece of crown. Of course, you can only order them in 16-foot lengths. All I need is 6 feet, so we'll save that big long length for another project. It will probably take a few weeks to get in. I don't know, I've ordered this a couple of times, and sometimes it's really fast and sometimes it takes a couple of weeks, so we will see, but we're gonna keep moving forward. I'm going to go ahead and start wood filling and caulking everything so that we can prepare for painting. That will take me a little while, and I wanna make sure to do a really good job so that we have a nice clean surface to paint over. Once we get the crown in, I'll cut that last piece. So that's where we are. So I am going to get busy filling all of these nail holes, caulking all of our seams, getting everything cleaned up, and then we are going to move on to the last major build of the project. I still have some other small ideas, but this one is absolutely mission critical, and that is the cabinet doors. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon if you want to be notified for future posts, and share it with a friend if you think it's something they would like. And I'll catch up with you next time.